My name is Patsy R. Bolt, and I'm 30 years old. My boyfriend Ryan is 27. We had been together just under 2 years and living together for 9 months. Until recently, I thought we were solid. Not perfect, but normal solid. The kind where you argue about dishes or whose turn it is to buy groceries. Not the kind where you question someone's honesty. Ryan had always had this habit of labeling any discomfort I expressed as jealousy. Not insecurity, not concern, jealousy, like it was some immature personality flaw he tolerated out of patience. He had a lot of female friends, and at first I was fine with that. I'm not the type who believes men and women can't be friends, but over time, some of the boundaries started getting blurry. Every time I brought it up, he would sigh dramatically and say something like, "God, Patsy, don't be like that." 3 nights ago, he didn't come home. At 1:12 a.m., my phone buzzed with a message from him. "Staying at a hotel. Don't freak out." That was it. No explanation, no phone call, just those 5 words. I texted back immediately asking where. He didn't reply for 40 minutes. Then another message came through. "Downtown. Erica got wasted and couldn't drive. I wasn't leaving her like that." Erica was his coworker, the same coworker he told me not to worry about last month because she was literally like a sister. I asked him why he didn't just call me to help. He replied with a voice note that sounded slightly slurred. "Don't be jealous, Patsy. Nothing happened. We stayed at a hotel because she was drunk. End of story." Something about how quickly he shut it down made my stomach turn. Ryan came home late the next morning wearing sunglasses and acting irritated before I even spoke. The moment I asked what happened, he snapped at me for interrogating him. He said I was being controlling, said normal girlfriends would trust him. Then he smirked and added, "If you don't trust me, that's a you problem." I looked at him calmly and said, "All right, let's see." He laughed. "See what?" "The hotel," I said. "Security footage, lobby, elevators, hallway, just to clear the air." His face changed instantly. I'm not exaggerating when I say he exploded. 1 second he was smug and relaxed. The next he was shouting. What the hell is wrong with you?" he yelled. "You're insane. You don't get to spy on me. This is abusive behavior." The speed of the reaction told me everything. I hadn't even opened my laptop yet. I stayed calm, which only seemed to make him angrier. I told him hotels keep security cameras for liability reasons. Hallways, elevators, the front desk. I said I wasn't asking to invade privacy. I just wanted to verify the story he insisted was innocent. Ryan started pacing the living room, running his hands through his hair. "You're crossing a line," he kept repeating. At one point, he yelled, "Why are you so obsessed with catching me doing something?" That sentence stuck with me. So I asked him a very simple question. "If nothing happened, why are you scared?" He snapped back instantly. "I'm not scared, I'm offended." Then he grabbed his phone and started texting someone aggressively. I didn't have to ask who. I told him I had already called the hotel to ask about their policy for requesting security footage. That part wasn't exactly true yet. I just wanted to see how deep he would dig himself. He froze. "You already called?" "Just to understand the process," I said. His voice dropped. "They won't give it to you anyway." "Why?" "Because nothing happened," he said quickly. "And because it's illegal, so you should just drop it." Too prepared, too defensive. I asked him to walk me through the night slowly from the moment Erica got drunk. He rolled his eyes so hard it was almost theatrical. He said she couldn't stand up. Said he didn't want to babysit her in public. Said the hotel was the safest option. He claimed they got separate beds. Claimed he passed out immediately. When I asked why he didn't tell me the hotel name until the next morning, he said, "Because you'd act exactly like this." I told him I was going to request the footage anyway. He started crying then, but not sad crying. Angry crying. "If you do this, we're done," he said. That was the moment everything became clear. He wasn't afraid of losing me. He was afraid of what the cameras might show. "If you do this, we're done," he said, arms crossed, chin lifted like he was daring me to blink first. I nodded once. Okay. That threw him off. He had expected panic, bargaining, backtracking, some last-minute attempt to calm him down so the conversation could slide back into the version of reality he preferred. Instead, I opened my laptop right there in front of him and started drafting an email to the hotel's front desk. I didn't hide the screen. I kept it simple and professional. I asked about their camera retention policy and the process for requesting footage involving registered guests. No accusations, no drama, just facts. Ryan lunged toward the laptop. I closed it just before his hand hit the keyboard. "Are you trying to humiliate me?" he shouted. "Do you know how crazy this makes you look?" I looked up at him and asked the same questions again, because calm repetition tends to do more damage than emotional speeches ever could. Why didn't he just call me to help Erica get home? Why was a hotel the only option? Why didn't he come home after she was safe? Why did he wait so long to even tell me where he was? His answers kept changing. First, Erica was vomiting. Then her phone had died. Then he was too tired to deal with the situation. Then suddenly it was none of my business. At one point he said, "I knew you'd make this a whole thing, so I handled it myself." That sentence made my skin crawl. I asked if they checked in together. He hesitated for half a second, then said, "Obviously yes, it was easier." I asked if they went to the room together. Another pause. Longer this time. "I mean, yeah, the elevator, obviously. God, why are you like this?" I asked if anyone else saw them. He snapped, "It's a hotel, not a courtroom." That line sat in the room longer than he intended it to, because everything that came out of his mouth kept sounding less like innocence and more like strategy. He kept circling back to one thing over and over again. Not whether I believed him, not whether our relationship could survive this. What bothered him most was how embarrassing this could become for him, for Erica, for people at work, for his reputation if anyone got the wrong idea. Not once did he say, "I didn't cheat." That night, he slept on the couch by choice, blasting videos at full volume from his phone like he was trying to drown out the sound of his own thoughts. Around 2 in the morning, I heard him crying quietly, then whispering angrily into his phone. I didn't get up. I didn't ask who he was talking to. I already knew. The next morning, I got an email back from the hotel. They confirmed the date. They confirmed the room. They confirmed the cameras. And they told me I could submit a formal request. When I told Ryan, he didn't yell. He went completely silent. That scared me more than the screaming ever had. Silence can be more honest than panic because it shows you the moment someone realizes the performance is no longer working. He sat at the kitchen table with his jaw clenched so tightly I could see the muscle jumping. Then he looked at me and said, "You're really going through with this?" It wasn't a question. "Yes," I said. He laughed once, dry, empty. "Wow, you really want this relationship to be over, don't you?" There it was again. The rewriting. Turn my search for clarity into an attack on the relationship so he wouldn't have to face what caused it in the first place. I told him the hotel had already confirmed the footage existed. I said all I had to do now was submit the request form with my ID and the booking information. I said it the way someone might explain a return policy, calmly and without drama. His hand slammed down on the table. "You don't get to do this to me." "To you," I repeated. "I'm asking for clarity." He shoved back his chair so hard it scraped across the floor. "Oh, you're trying to trap me," he snapped. "This is a setup." I asked him how hallway footage could be a trap if nothing happened. He opened his mouth, closed it, then snapped, "Because people will misinterpret things." "Like what?" He waved his hands wildly. "Body language, timing, proximity. You know how things can look bad even when they aren't." That answer settled into me like a weight, because innocent people usually want context. They don't panic over posture. I asked where Erica was now. "At home," he said too quickly. "Then why?" "No reason," I said. But there was a reason. I was already filling out the hotel request. That was when he lost it again. He grabbed his keys, shouted that he needed air, and stormed out of the apartment. 5 minutes later, I heard his car tear out of the parking lot hard enough to make me flinch. He didn't come back that night. At 11:47 p.m., my phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. "Hey, this is Erica. We need to talk." I stared at the screen for a long moment. That was the exact moment I knew the footage wasn't going to be boring, and whatever they were both afraid of had already crossed the line from questionable to undeniable. I didn't respond to Erica right away, not because I was scared, but because I had started noticing something important. When I stayed calm and gave people silence, they moved. They revealed more. They panicked louder. Ryan came back the next afternoon like nothing had happened. Same expression, same tight smile, same brittle energy under the surface. He asked if I had eaten his leftovers and then snapped when I said no. The audacity of it was almost impressive. Like if he acted normal enough, maybe the whole situation could be dragged back into familiar territory. Then his phone rang. He looked at the screen and froze. Not dramatically, just enough for me to notice. He walked into the bathroom to answer it, but he didn't close the door all the way. I heard pieces of the conversation, scattered and sharp. "No, I didn't tell her that." A pause. "Because you said it was fine." Another pause. "I thought you handled it." When he came out and saw me looking at him, he went straight on the offensive. "So what?" he said. "Now you're eavesdropping too?" I ignored that. "Erica texted me," I said. The color drained from his face. "You gave her my number?" he snapped. "No," I said calmly. "She already had it." He opened his mouth, then stopped. That was mistake number 1. I told him Erica said she wanted to talk. Absolutely not, he said immediately. She was probably drunk when she texted you. She's dramatic. She's just trying to protect herself. Protect herself from what? I asked. He didn't answer. That night, I finally replied to her. I kept it simple. You can talk. Say what you need to say. She called almost immediately. Her voice was shaky, sober, nervous in a way that sounded real. She said she didn't want drama. Said Ryan told her I was unstable and looking for excuses to blow things up. Then she paused, and when she spoke again, her voice dropped lower. But the hotel thing, she said. He didn't tell you the full story. My heart started pounding, but my voice stayed level. What full story? She admitted they checked in together. Admitted they went straight to the room together. Admitted they stayed in the same bed. Then she rushed to add that nothing really happened. I didn't interrupt. I just listened. Then she said the sentence that made my blood go cold. There's probably footage of us in the elevator, she said. He was sitting on me. For a second, I couldn't hear anything except my own pulse. Not because I was shocked anymore, because suddenly all the loose pieces clicked into place. The screaming, the panic, the obsession with optics, the fury at the idea of hallway footage. I didn't yell. I didn't react. I thanked her for telling me and hung up. When I walked back into the living room, Ryan was watching me with the expression of someone who already knew the room had changed. I looked at him and said, "The hotel said they'll send the footage within 48 hours. He started screaming again. But this time he didn't call me crazy. This time he said, "You promised you wouldn't do this to me." That sentence stopped me colder than the confession. Not you promised you'd trust me. No, I didn't do anything. Just this. Like the true betrayal wasn't what he did. It was me refusing to stay confused. You promised you wouldn't do this to me. That sentence sat in the air between us like something fragile that had already cracked. Not you promised you'd trust me. Not you promised you wouldn't accuse me. Just this. Like the real betrayal wasn't the hotel. It was me refusing to stay confused. I looked at him carefully. What exactly did I promise? He opened his mouth, then closed it again. The answer wasn't there because the promise he was imagining had never actually existed. It was just an expectation he had built quietly over time, that I would doubt myself before I doubted him, that I would prioritize peace over truth. Ryan started pacing again, hands running through his hair, muttering under his breath that I was blowing up his life over nothing. That word again. Nothing. I let him talk until the room went quiet. You stayed in a hotel with another woman, I said finally. You lied about it. You panicked when I asked for proof. She admitted things that don't match your story. She's exaggerating, he snapped immediately. She's dramatic. She's trying to save herself. Did you sit on her in the elevator, I asked? His mouth opened slightly. Closed. Then he rolled his eyes and said, "Oh my God, are we seriously doing this?" That was my answer. He switched tactics almost instantly. His voice softened, his shoulders dropped, and suddenly there were tears sitting in his eyes like they had been waiting for the right moment to appear. "You're making me feel unsafe," he said quietly. "This obsession with footage is insane. I don't even recognize you anymore." I watched him carefully. "If the roles were reversed," I said, "you'd already have my bags packed." He didn't deny it. Instead, he said the line people use when logic fails them. "If you really loved me, you wouldn't need proof." That was the moment my voice finally rose. "If you really respected me," I said, "I wouldn't need to ask." The room went quiet again. Ryan sat down on the couch and stared at the wall, like he had suddenly run out of versions of the story to try. Later that night, he asked if we were still sleeping in the same bed, like that detail somehow mattered more than everything else we had just said. I told him no and took a blanket to the couch. He didn't follow. He stayed in the bedroom, scrolling through his phone, occasionally sighing loudly enough for me to hear. The next morning at 9:03 a.m., the email arrived. The hotel confirmed the footage was ready. Lobby, elevator, hallway outside the room. No commentary, no interpretation, just timestamps and clips. I hadn't even downloaded it yet when Ryan walked into the kitchen and saw the subject line on my laptop screen. His phone slipped out of his hand. It hit the floor and shattered. He didn't even look down at it. He just stared at me and whispered, "Please don't watch it." That was the moment I knew whatever was on those cameras was worse than anything I had imagined. I didn't open the footage right away. That part surprises people when I tell them the story later. They expect the moment proof arrives, you rush toward it like ripping off a bandage. I didn't. I just sat there with my laptop closed, while Ryan locked himself in the bathroom and cried like someone attending a funeral, where he knew the body personally. After a few minutes, he came out with red eyes and no anger left. The performance was gone. He sat across from me on the couch and spoke quietly. "You don't need to watch it," he said. I'll tell you whatever you want to know. That sentence landed harder than anything he had shouted. Then start talking, I said. He nodded slowly and stared down at his hands. He said Erica was drunk. That part was true. He said he was annoyed with her and embarrassed, said he didn't want to deal with her in public, said the hotel felt easier than calling me because he didn't want to fight. I asked why he didn't leave after she was in the room. He hesitated, then said she kept apologizing and he felt bad. I asked why he didn't leave after that. Another pause. Because it got complicated, he said quietly. Complicated. That was his word. He admitted they sat close together in the elevator, admitted she put her hands on his shoulders, admitted he didn't stop it. He kept repeating the same phrase over and over like it might save him. But it didn't go all the way. I asked if they kissed. He shook his head, then nodded, then whispered, I don't know. That was enough. I stood up, grabbed my laptop, and told him I was going to watch the footage. He grabbed my arm so hard it hurt. Please, he said, I'm begging you. Not begging me to stay, begging me not to see. I pulled my arm free gently and walked into the bedroom, locking the door behind me. The first clip was the lobby. They walked in together at 12:38 a.m. Ryan wasn't supporting Erica. He wasn't frustrated. He was laughing. That was the first thing that made my stomach drop. Because whatever came next, the story he told me had already started falling apart. I clicked the elevator footage, and that's where everything stopped being debatable. The elevator camera was silent. No dramatic angles. No blurry mystery. Just a fixed camera in the corner doing exactly what it was designed to do. Recording reality. The doors closed. Ryan leaned back against the wall slightly, swaying a little. Erica stepped directly in front of him. Not beside him. In front. Close enough that there wasn't an inch of space between them. She put her hands on his shoulders. He slid his hands down to her waist. She didn't move them away. Instead, she adjusted her stance. Then she laughed again. He said something I couldn't hear. She rolled her eyes and smiled the way people do when they think something is cute. And then she sat down on him. Not stumbled. Not collapsed. Sat. Her legs on either side of him. Her arms around his neck. His face pressed against her shoulder. The elevator stopped on their floor. The doors opened. She stayed there for 3 full seconds before standing up. Then she smoothed her dress and walked out first like nothing unusual had happened. Ryan followed behind her. I paused the video and stared at the wall. I felt strangely calm. Like my body had been bracing for impact for days and the crash had finally happened. The hallway footage was worse in a quieter way. They walked shoulder to shoulder down the hall, his arm around her waist, her leaning into him. At their door, she turned toward him and kissed him. Not a drunk accident. A deliberate kiss. I closed the laptop. When I unlocked the bedroom door, Ryan was sitting on the floor outside it with his knees pulled to his chest. He looked up at me the way people do when they already know the verdict. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just said 2 words. Pack a bag. Ryan started crying immediately after I said it. Not quiet crying, not the kind that comes from reflection. It was loud and frantic, like someone who had just realized the door they assumed would stay open forever had actually closed. He kept repeating that it didn't mean anything, that it was a mistake, that the video didn't show the whole story. The strange thing was how quickly his explanations returned to the same theme: confusion, stress, alcohol. Anything that suggested the moment had happened to him instead of because of him. I stood there for a few seconds and let him talk until the room filled with his excuses. Then I said calmly, "You have 30 minutes." For the first time since this started, he understood that the shouting wasn't going to work anymore. He didn't pack quietly. He packed like someone trying to create enough noise to interrupt the reality forming around him. Drawers slammed open and shut. Zippers tore across fabric. Shoes were thrown into the bag without matching pairs. The entire time he kept talking, filling the air with explanations like if he could say enough words quickly enough, I wouldn't have space to remember what I had just watched. He said he had been stressed. He said he felt like I had been distant lately. He said Erica had taken advantage of the situation. Then, without even pausing, he said he knew he should have pushed her away harder. None of it landed. At one point, he stopped and looked straight at me, mascara streaks from earlier tears still on his face, and said something that almost sounded like disbelief. "You're really not even fighting for us." That one almost got to me. Almost. Because part of me remembered the version of us from before the doubt started creeping in. The version where trust felt simple, and I didn't need hotel cameras to understand my own relationship. But that memory didn't erase the footage. I told him quietly, I fought the moment I asked questions instead of swallowing lies. He looked confused. "I fought when I stayed calm while you screamed at me," I continued. I fought when I gave you every chance to tell the truth before the cameras had to." He shook his head slowly. "You care more about footage than feelings." "No," I said. "I care more about reality than excuses." That ended the conversation. When he finished packing, he stood in the doorway holding his bag, waiting for something. Permission. Forgiveness. Maybe the line people say in movies when they realize they've made a mistake. "Don't go. Stay. We can fix this." I didn't say any of them. He left, slamming the door so hard a picture frame fell from the wall. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed. "So that's it?" the text said. I didn't respond. Another message arrived almost immediately. "I hope you're happy destroying everything over one mistake." I stared at that line for a moment. One mistake, not a pattern, not a lie followed by panic, followed by manipulation. Just a single unfortunate moment he wanted me to compress the entire story into. I almost replied, not to argue, but to correct the math. Instead, I blocked his number. That night, I slept deeper than I had in weeks. The next morning, I opened the hotel footage again. Not because I needed to see it a second time. I already knew what it showed. I watched it because I wanted to remember exactly why clarity hurts less than doubt. By the afternoon, mutual friends started reaching out carefully. Messages that sounded neutral but curious. "Hey, are you okay? What happened between you two?" I didn't overshare. I didn't send the footage around. I didn't turn the situation into a public trial. I just said one sentence. I asked for honesty. I got screaming instead. No one argued with that. And that was the moment I realized something I should have understood much earlier. Jealousy had never been the problem. Trust was. It has been a few weeks now. The apartment feels different, not emptier, just calmer. There is no tension humming in the background. No late-night texts explaining situations that somehow never make complete sense. I changed the sheets, rearranged the living room, deleted his contact from my phone. Small resets. Physical reminders that life was continuing. Ryan tried one last time a few days after he left. He didn't text or call. He emailed. The message was long, carefully written, full of phrases like poor judgment, emotional overload, and boundary confusion. He apologized for how everything looked and said he hated that it had come out this way. He said he never meant to hurt me and hoped one day we could talk like adults. What stood out wasn't what he said. It was what he didn't. No, I cheated. No, I lied. Just passive sentences where things happened instead of choices being made. I didn't reply. I don't need closure from someone who only tells the truth once there's evidence. The screaming before the footage arrived, that was the real confession. Innocent people don't panic when someone suggests turning on the lights. They welcome it. Looking back now, the hotel wasn't actually the betrayal. The betrayal was how quickly he tried to make me doubt my own instincts. How easily he labeled my questions jealousy. How comfortable he was calling me controlling, crazy, paranoid, anything except right. He expected trust without honesty, loyalty without boundaries, and silence instead of clarity. I replay his first sentence sometimes. "Don't be jealous. We stayed at a hotel because she was drunk." What he really meant was something else entirely. Don't question me. Don't look too closely. Accept the version of reality that protects me. I didn't. And yes, seeing the footage hurt, but ignoring it would have hurt a lot more. Because the worst feeling in the world isn't heartbreak. It's spending years thinking you're crazy for noticing things that never made sense. So if there's one thing I learned from all of this, it's simple. When someone reacts to questions with rage instead of answers, listen to that. When they're more afraid of proof than consequences, believe them. Clarity hurts, but it doesn't hurt nearly as much as choosing to stay blind.